what does unit planning look like? So I have a binder like this, and it's worth investing in some like heavier duty binders. So this is from Staples. They're called the Better Binder, and they're just more durable. I have a binder like this for in science every unit. So that's why number one's on here. This is the first unit. There are 4 units in grade 5 science. And for socials, I have a binder for every unit. In literacy and math, where there's too many units and they're shorter, I have a binder for every term. So I start just by making it creative and nice. I make sure I've got enough binders. I put the title pages and that kind of thing in. That's the first step in making my plans, like my year overview plans. Now, inside of every binder, I have the scope and sequence for the whole year. So I make that year plan over the course of like several weeks, doing like a lot of like fine tuning, and then I make this really simple one that I print out on cardstock and I put in the front of every binder, and I highlight the unit that this one is. That way I can see really quickly if I go across that in October I'm doing an environmental theme, so there is some cross-curricular connections. There may be materials in here I could use in that unit, and there might be things I'm looking for that are in that binder. So that helps me just see the whole year at a glance and see where there might be some overlap. Then I just have a title page, just a really simple one that I put post-it notes and that kind of thing on, and any other notes I might end up having for this subject. I usually just stick on that front page. Behind that, I have a page for resources. So I have a lot of digital resources that I buy so that I can show them on my smartboard, and they're all saved on my Google Drive, and I might not remember them when I'm doing my planning, so I usually list them right here. This is new this year, that's why it doesn't look like it's been used. I haven't filled everything in yet. But I not only scan those digital resources or buy them as digitals, but I also take that front page and put it in here to jog my memory when I'm doing my planet, what digital resources I might have available. Behind that, I have my introductory activities. Now this is again just like a clear sheet that has a page divider for that. At the beginning of the year, I have introductory activities for all my major subjects, and there are lots of them, like it's a really thick packet of introductory activities, and I do photocopy all of them, so that in the first 2 weeks, when things are still getting settled and I'm trying to figure out which schedule works, and there's a lot of interruptions, I have a lot of work available at my fingertips, so that if it's just time for a science lesson, by the seat of my pants, I can pick something up and we can go from there. So under my introductory activities, I also put my teaching plan for what it looks like at the beginning of the year every year. And I've never taught this unit before because I'm switching to grade 5, so I haven't filled in for this year what it looked like. But that way when I plan over the summer next year, I can look at how things spaced out and which worksheets got used and which ones got wasted, so that each year I can become more efficient and maybe don't have to copy all of these introductory activities if I know for sure which ones I'm going to be using. So my introductory activities start with a card, and all of my lessons start with a card like this. I do backwards by design, so I make a card like this for every single objective, for every subject, or for every like unit in every subject. So I made lots of these, and I color code them to match the binder. At the top it says the subject. This is objective-based planning. I have the curriculum objective from the program of studies, and then underneath it I have the related reporting outcomes. Because in my district we do objective-based reporting, and we are not using the direct program of studies outcomes. We kind of put them in our own language and summarize them. But this way I know what reporting outcomes this specific learning objective goes with. And then down here I have a little grid that I just like write all my different notes on about what it looks like in my classroom, what materials I needed, how long it took. And in this spot, this is always my most important square. This is where I write just like the keywords, so that when I'm just rifling through my book, I can find this one's about climate versus weather. And then I have all those objectives behind it. In science, there's often objectives, and in math, that are completed throughout, that it's not just one lesson I teach, this has to come up again and again. So behind this tab, I have that for this unit, there are 2 objectives that are throughout. One is measuring the weather, and one is making weather measuring devices. So we'll do those at different times throughout the unit. And I put those objectives here. Same thing, it starts with a task card, and then it has a lot of materials behind it. So when I'm doing my planning, I make these cards, I make the binder, and I have nothing behind them. And then I go through all the available resources at my school, and I go on Teachers Pay Teachers, and I go to the library, and I collect everything I conceivably can about this topic, and I divide it behind all the little cards. And then I decide what I'm going to use each year, and it always looks different. I think you should diversify for the kids you have, like differentiate, but also for the kids you have every year, it's going to be different. So if you're teaching cookie cutter lessons, then you're not diversifying or differentiating. You're just, you might as well be a robot. So I make sure that I have lots of materials so that every year I can say, like, this group struggles with writing, so I'm going to see if I can find writing projects that fall under this objective so that I can hit it twice in a day. Or this group loves hands-on projects, so can I put 3 different ones under different objectives? Like, it just makes it so that when I do my planning, I have a lot of choice, and I can make lesson plans that are tailored to the class that I have. Those are the objectives completed throughout. And then I have, it just says the name of the unit, the standard objectives, and I put little tabs on the side so that when I'm putting all those materials in here, it's really easy to find which tab they go behind because I put tabs for all the different objectives. And there are as many cards as there are program of studies objectives, and there is a lot of overlapping reporting objectives. But so yeah, I put the materials behind each one, and I will write notes as I go through and teach about what's like the most effective, which kids really got, and anything that's like a real stinker, I'll throw away. But generally, I hoard a lot of materials so that, again, I can change it up every year and try to improve every year upon last year's experience. When I'm planning, so this is what the binder looks like. When I'm planning, what I do is put the binder on my desk, and I have my agenda, and I will know that, like, okay, I'm on learning objective number 4, which is the geography of weather. So I will look behind the geography of weather, find the materials that go with it that I want to copy, and I will record it in my planning agenda so that I can plan ahead what I'll be covering and have those photocopies done and ready. That's how I plan, taking the binder out and just working my way through those objectives. In my first year, I've mapped out how long I'd like to allot for each unit, but I'm leaving it pretty open, that if I need to change something to make it a little longer, or if it doesn't go as long, I can. Inside of my agenda, I like to plan ahead for the week really detailed. So on Friday or Saturday, I'll write in all the little tiny things like, don't forget to ask so-and-so about his library book, and this is when I'm penciling 15 minutes of yoga. But I also plan for the month very open-ended. So, it's the summer, so I haven't written a lot in yet. But I'll have, I divide it up. I put all these marker lines in. I put in the subject down the side, and then I'll put in the objective that I'll be working on at that time, ahead of time at the beginning of the month. And then during the week, when I'm planning for that week, I put in the detail. And that's how I lesson plan. After 13 years of teaching, Backwards by Design is definitely the best system that I have found to make sure that I'm being the best teacher that I can be, and I'm not just picking up like the brown book for EPS science and going lesson 1, lesson 2, but that I'm really trying to do something that's innovative and shows my students that I'm tailoring toward their learning styles. And also after 13 years of teaching, and I'm pretty tech savvy, I do find that writing it down in the book is the best thing I can do to make sure that I am planning with detail, and also that I have easy records that I actually access in future years. So for my first 3 or 4 years of teaching grade 6, I kept these books so that next year when it's September 15th, I can go back and look at last year's September 15th to see kind of where I was. Am I matching up? Am I falling behind? And after about, I'd say 5 or 6 years of teaching grade 6, I didn't need to check back as often. But now that I'm teaching grade 5 starting this year, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to keep really detailed paper plans that I can put on my shelf, pull out, and see if I'm kind of keeping to the same timetable as previous years. And I do have to hold myself to that because I really love new gadgets. And if there's a new app for lesson planning, I'll try it. But invariably, I don't go back and use that app the next year to compare. And I do when it's in a book. So those are my planning plans for this year's grade 5 in 2 Hills Mennonite School.